Okay, we're back. It's Camp Time is Real Time, and I'm your host, Sarah Lebrecq. Hey, this week we're talking to Cam, and this was an awesome episode. He's the Squirrels head counselor and the Woodworking head counselor, which means he had my son Aiden in his troop all 6 weeks. So I can confirm he's amazing. We talked about a lot of very cool things. One, woodworking, and just talking about how much history there is there. Um, and if you ever were a person who went to FCDC, the way Cam describes what's there is really going to bring back some memories. Um, we talked about the green hat ceremony and what it means and how it's really become a thing at camp, which I think is really awesome. And I hope that it continues to develop and evolve. And then we talked about how Cam plans his skits, which are amazing. I saw some of them in person. So much effort, so funny, so good. Um, it's just a delight. All of these counselors that are working there now are awesome. I can't stress it enough. So, this was a really fun episode. We talked the 6th week of camp. So, we got that camp energy in there. You're going to love it, hands down. Um, that's really all from me. Hey, would you do me a favor and send me an email or slide into the DMs on Instagram? Oh, check out TikTok. Freddie posted a couple videos last week. This is a really great pod, and if you think you could be the star of a really great pod, I think you should get in touch with me. That's all I have for today. Enjoy the episode. Bye.
I don't remember the exact year, but I remember I started as a Chippewa. I believe a Chippewa is younger than a Navajo, which,
Correct.
yes.
Yeah.
So I started as a Chippewa and I moved on through there. I remember I started off only as one session. I went right back to my mom. Mom, I gotta go for longer. Next summer it was 2 sessions. And then after that summer, it was like, Mom, can I please go the whole summer? And every year I asked her, but my sister also went to camp. And so it was 2 sessions each. So my mom was like, oh, I don't know. I think we're just going to keep it you and Tori for 2 sessions. The second Tori was in Dakota and she didn't come back as a CIT. It was 3 sessions from there on out. And
Nice.
I couldn't get enough of camp ever.
Yeah. So have you been straight through since you were a Chippewa?
No, no, I have not. So I
Oh.
from Chippewa to Cheyenne and I became a first year CIT, and I remember I was thrilled. I remember when I got the letter, I was like jumping up and down. And I'm like, Mom, I'm going back. It was awesome. And I went back as a first year CIT, and then the year after that, I remember I decided to start playing football again. And unfortunately, the way the summer training went for football, I was going to miss orientation in the first day of camp. And because of that, they said we couldn't do it because of the commitment.
Yeah.
And it was unfortunate because I didn't even end up playing football after that.
Oh
So
no.
after that, I could have came back as an assistant, but I decided as well as my parents' decision, they wanted me working pretty much year round. So I got a different job, and I didn't think it was right to quit my other job. I felt committed to them as well. So I didn't come back as an assistant all the way up until the year after COVID. I remember I was thinking about it like about 4 months before camp. I was like, wow, how much fun would it be if I worked at camp? And then maybe a month later, I get a text from Maura like, hey, Sam reached out to me and was wondering if you wanted to come back. And I was thrilled. I couldn't have been more excited about it. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I was just thinking about this the other day. I would love nothing more. And I got on the phone with Sam, and Sam was like, hey, buddy, I got an opportunity for you. And I'm like, let me hear it. And he's like, how would you like to be the woodworking head counselor? And I was like, done, easy. I'm there.
Yeah. Wow. That's awesome.
I was so excited. I got asked to come back, and It's actually the way I remembered it as a camper, and it's just so much more fun being in a different position and seeing it from a whole different point of view. And I love it. I love every aspect of it.
Yeah. So you have the squirrels who are going into second grade, so like Algonquin Comanche age.
Yes.
Were you psyched about the age? Or because I can say we have some reviews from our house, and they're all rave reviews. So
Uh, Funny enough, I was pretty, I'd say, concerned about the age. I didn't know uh how I would do with this age group, and within the first week, I realized I thought it was perfect
yeah,
because my favorite thing about this age group is they're young enough to the point where everybody can be friends. Everyone can get along. It doesn't matter if you walk up to someone and say, "Hey, do you want to play with me?" And just like that, they're friends, and I love that. Um, but they're also old enough to the point where they understand, like, hey, you can do this, but you shouldn't do that, as well as they have like basic manners, common sense. It's fantastic. I think it's a perfect blend because when you get to the older kids, sometimes the kids can get a bit clicky, and you get a little bit of groups within your troop, if that makes sense.
yeah,
And uh, you really don't have to worry about that with kids going into second grade.
yeah. That's a great perspective. Did you have them last year also, same age?
And,
Okay.
and for,
Nice.
I'd like to think if we still had the old troop names, they would be the Algonquins.
I agree.
Yes.
That's great. As a former Algonquin, I can co-sign that statement that
Yes.
gotta
Fantastic.
represent the Algonquins for sure. So who was in your tribe growing up? Like anyone was
Oh,
Mora with you or
Mora was with me the whole way.
okay.
As well as we had three sets of twins in our tribe growing up. It was ridiculous. We had
What?
we had Mia and Sarah McDonald who came back to camp all the way till assistants, and they were assistants for a little bit. Me and Sarah McDonald identical, and there was Tessa and Talia Pantaleo. I don't remember if they ever became CITs, but they were fraternal. That was two girls. I'm still friends with both of them to this day, as well as Tyler and Audrey Conley, who both went until second year CITs. Audrey was summer squash and Tyler was corn on the cob. I always remember that. And they actually grew up right down the street from Maura and I as well. So that
Oh,
was super cool having them at camp, and it was a blast. As well as we had Dylan Wong in our troop, who was all the way up until an assistant right before a head, and we had Olivia Dennehy in our group, who was a counselor as well for quite some time. I don't remember when she stopped, but a lot of people, as well as a lot of my childhood friends, came through who didn't come back as counselors. For example, Nolan Gunning, Mason Reed, Andrew McKinney. I had a lot of friends in that troop, many of which I still talk to this day.
wow. That's
It was,
awesome.
yeah, yeah, we all got along great. It was a really fun time always, and we always stuck together. We stayed in the same troop for pretty much all the way up until the end.
That's really cool. Were you guys what was it a bunch of 6 weekers or were people like coming and going?
It was scattered. A lot of my kids or a lot of my friends from my hometown, they usually only went for one session,
Mhm.
but you had people like Mora, the twins, all sets of twins, Dylan Wong, who would go for 3 sessions.
Oh my
So
gosh.
we were together for quite some time. And like I said, we became a very close group of friends to the point where we were hanging outside of camp. We were hanging out year round outside of camp, like going.
Wow. That's the ultimate mark right there. You can be friends like during the off season, that's a real amazing.
I remember like a couple months before camp started, I got together with me and Sarah McDonald, more Dylan Wong, and like we just hung out for the day, and we came back and we all talked, and it's fantastic. I love that I love that I still have these connections. And funny enough, I actually got Dylan Wong a job working at my restaurant, Thirsty Beaver on Route One. It's
Shout
definitely
out.
a lot.
Wow. See, there you go. These are,
Yeah,
again, right? I met my husband through a camp friend. These are important relationships to have.
yeah, it's fantastic.
Wow. Who were some of the counselors that you guys had growing up?
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. So I remember when I was a Chippewa, and it's funny enough because I didn't realize this until until the 50th reunion party. But Caroline Nutting was one of my counselors when I was a Chippewa. And for whatever reason, I remember her as the main counselor, even though she was nowhere near old enough to be the head counselor.
Yep.
I gave all my attention to her because I think she was walking us around. But I remember Caroline Nutting. I remember the Fridays, who I thought Andrew and AJ Friday were the coolest people to ever walk this earth. AJ would come in and do those Elvis dances, and I thought it was so funny, and I would get so into it. And he would. I remember they would come flying in around the stable with everybody sitting at the theater, and he'd run out stage and then have all the assistant girls like going crazy for him, and he'd come up, he'd do an Elvis song, and then he'd hop in the back of somebody's like roofless car and drive off. And I just thought it was the coolest thing. So I remember the Fridays. I remember the Monjars, Blake and Nick, who actually went to the same high school I did, so I still see them quite often. Harley, Molly Tatry, Hunter, the Potemrys, period. Great people. I loved them. Uh, I remember Greg, the guy with toe shoes out of Pioneering. Of course, John P. Scott with long hair. That was a different era of
Yep.
Scott.
Yeah, sure.
Sam as the Apache boating counselor. Back when Sue was in the wood shop, and then Billy took over afterwards. Um, I definitely remember a lot of the counselors from when I was a camper, and had so many good memories with each of them.
So when you came back, it was like Sam who was like, "Hey, it's the wood shop." Were it, are you handy? Are you, or is this just like I'm at camp,
Oh,
so it's good?
uh, well, I'd like to think I'm pretty handy. So ever since I was really young, I was always like really into Legos. That's kind of where all of this started. Always loved Legos, and my parents would always laugh because I'd get some crazy big set and put it together in like 34, 40 minutes. And so my dad, my whole life at least, he has worked in construction, and my dad is an extremely handy person. He he's actually built every building I've ever lived in. So he built,
Ah, gotcha.
as well as he built the current apartment I'm living in right now. Um, but we had a workshop in our home as well in the basement, and this is like it was like every dad's fantasy. Like my dad had a whole tool bench, like a table saw, and just every tool you could think of. And when I was young, I remember always going in there with either him or my brother and just working on random things, from Pinewood Derby cars to making a wooden bike ramp for my brother on his like BMX bikes or dirt bikes. And we had to make quite a few of those because they would break after leaving them in the woods. And one of my favorite projects I ever did is my brother and we built a 3-story tree house up in the woods behind our house. We had a lot of woods behind our house, so my brother and I were always out there doing random things. And we put a lot of time into this tree house. And I remember one year, him and I went out there with a couple of sawzalls, and we went around and we cut down a bunch of on the thinner side pine trees, and we we had this 3-story tree house. And the first story, what we decided to do is we built a frame and then brought all those pine wood trees we cut, and we got it completely ready for the winter to the point where we covered it up with all the pine trees and then a bunch of branches and leaves as well as on the outside. So it was kind of like insulation. We did a layer of tarp and then another layer of like branches and pine trees to make it not look ugly because nobody really wants a big thing wrapped in tarp.
Right.
But it was cool because we would go up there and we would hang out in the winter and just do whatever. But
So when are we going to start building houses at camp? Is that coming for summer
right,
2023?
the woods with Freddie, him and I could put up a tree house in a week.
Yeah, you should. That's a real skill. You know, there used to be a tree house at camp, right?
Where?
On the camp side, there was a big tree right before the bridge, like kind of between the shed where you get your cookout stuff and that series of tents, or maybe it was like right there. Actually, there's like a huge tree,
Wow.
and yeah, and there was a tree house there that from my memory was always like very much off limits because it was not safe. But I can't remember if it was Tom or Eric was telling me that it was like it was built and it never really was in use because it was like probably doesn't sound like it was built as well as the one that you had made. So, but yeah, I think let's get it going. That would be awesome.
Real quick, I want to just jump back to that. Also, so I did a lot of stuff with my brother, more so him and I just like messing around doing stuff we thought was cool. But my dad always thought it was really important that I learn how to do things myself. So I'm not always calling out to like, hey, do this for me, do that for me, calling someone if like there's a small thing that needs fixing. So anytime there was any sort of handiwork done around the house, he always made sure either I was doing it or by his side watching him do it. So from a young age, he had me just assembling random things like furniture or ceiling fans. I remember replacing every single door hinge in my house because he wanted a new color. Just stuff like that, and I was always on job sites with him, helping him out. So my dad has taught me pretty much everything I know when it comes to just handiness.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's really cool. And now you're passing that on to
I'd like
250 campers.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
My favorite thing to tell the campers is the universal rule of righty tighty, lefty loosey.
Of
I think,
of course.
or like the difference between a Phillips and a flathead screwdriver.
Yeah. Well,
It's
yeah. I mean,
not every,
those are things that not everyone learns, right?
right.
And it's something that as maybe trivial as that, but like not everyone learns that. And it's the same as like not everyone learns how to shoot a bow and arrow. Like not everyone learns how to paddle a canoe. And these are things you can come to camp and get them all in one fell
Yeah.
swoop. So you're you're making a difference.
It's very nice to think about the fact that I'm teaching these kids things that they can use later on in their life. It's very cool to think about.
Yeah. Well, and that they will remember that they learned it from you at camp like that.
That's a very overwhelming thing to think about. That like I could be some of these kids' core memories.
I'm sure you are. I'm sure you are. Like there's honestly there's not a doubt because when you think about who like you just rattle off the top of your head like these were my counselors, here's the thing I remember about them.
Right.
There are kids in your position right now. Like they remember that. So
Yeah.
there's not a question in my mind that there are kids looking up to you. No question.
It's easy to think about. It's very cool. I
Yeah.
remember. I real quick. I gotta put this in here. I remember as a camper, I thought Billy was the cool. Him in the Fridays, I thought Billy was the man because he was in the wood shop and he always had classic rock playing, just like my dad did. And he was always going around helping everyone. And I always looked forward to woodworking as a camper. And I would go up to him with like these random ideas. And he's like, "You think you can do it?" And I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." He's like, "All right, let's go ahead. Let's make it happen." And like I remember when I was a Cheyenne, I was like, "Hey Bill, I want to make a mini hockey rink." And he's like, "All right, let's do it." And he helped me make it. And I remember I kept it at camp for a few days, and me and the other campers would play with it. I made like mini hockey sticks and everything, and a marble, and like there was goals and everything, and like little like players in the middle of the rink and walls to keep the marble in. It was super fun. That was one of my favorite things that I did in the wood shop.
Wow. Do you, has when you have a kid come up to you now and say, "Hey, I have an idea for something I want to do," like has that happened to you? And what's
All
your
the,
response? Oh, all the
it,
time.
it, it's one of my favorite things to have happen in the wood shop. So the way I'll put it on the schedule, for the schedule I hand to Sam on what I'm doing for the session is the older kids. I just put it as project freedom, where they can look at past projects and do one of those, or they can brainstorm something and come up to me and be like, "Hey, can we make this happen?" And that's one of my favorite things is when kids get creative. Uh, like a kid came up to me, and it isn't one of the normal things we do, but a kid came up to me and asked me if he could do a birdhouse, and I'm like, absolutely, I would love to make that happen. So it's the only project this summer that's spanned over 3 sessions. But I love when a kid comes up to me with that creative spark and I can help make it happen. Every time somebody comes up to me and they're like, "Hey Cam, I have an idea," and I'm like, "What is it?" Like I'm smiling ear to ear. I think it's the coolest thing because when a kid comes into the wood shop and they're that excited about coming in and making something, and I get to be a part of that, I just think it's everything.
That's awesome. That is really cool. Plus, you don't have to plan for it.
Right? Like, all right, cool. Let's go grab a board. We'll make
Yeah.
it.
So Fink did a recap for week 5, and he said one of the parts that I don't think was in it, when his dad came to visit, he mentioned that in the wood shop it looks exactly the same, including like those vices and
Yeah,
like everything there.
yeah. This year especially, some of the vices I feel age is getting to them.
Yeah.
Some of them, like, you just got to pull out yourself, or they get stuck, or you start spinning them and only like one side starts coming out. But like I think that's part of what makes the wood shop like its own special place. It's just because of how much it stayed the same of when it first started. And I think it's super cool because you get to look along the walls and everything and see all the history in there. And if you open the drawers, like I remember 3 weeks ago, I found so many like Polaroid printouts, black and whites. They were actually on display at the 50th reunion of all these different moments at camp. For example, singing the stables, Tom with a full beard, the old tent with the stripes, uh, Battle Royale with the big red ball. It didn't have any problems with it. There was no duct tape, no repairs on it. And I love it. And my favorite picture that I found in there was of the old video camera where they had the massive one on the shoulder and somebody else holding like another, like I think it was the battery for it, or maybe
Yep.
the film. I don't even know the right terminology for it, but it's very cool seeing all the history on the walls in there, all the projects from past. There's something nailed into the post from 11, 12 years ago that my sister put in there. And I think it's super cool because I'd say probably 2 or 3 times a week, I have a camper come up to me and they're like, "Cam, do you have a sister?" And I'm like, "Yeah, she used to come to camp too." And it's cool because uh, something I have the campers do as well is like, if I have a camper who's always really enthusiastic about the wood shop, usually the older campers, because it's not always a guarantee that they return. What I'll tell them to do is like, "Well, hey, how about you leave a little piece of you with the wood shop?" So I've had a few campers this summer, as well as a couple last summer, where they'll make a tiny little project, like tiny, like maybe like a 2-inch wooden plank, or like Elizabeth Pansiaco, like 6 or 7 years ago, her and her friends made a bunch of circles and put them in a bird cage, and you just put them somewhere in the wood shop, and it just stays there. And
That's awesome.
it's super cool because it's a way that they get to stay a part of camp. The same way like 11, 12 years ago, my sister stayed a part of camp, and Elizabeth is going to stay in that wood shop for
Forever.
forever. I,
um, do
no, I,
I don't know if you have heard, I mentioned it on the pod, I think. So on that first tree over the bridge, there are a bunch of woodworking projects, one of
yes.
which is a black Nike swoosh that I made in 1994.
Oh, really? That's
Yeah. So if you go by it, you can see I wrote inexplicably, it's painted black, and then I wrote Sarah in like dark green. So it's hard to see.
nice.
But that was my whole tribe. And that was similar to what you just said. It was Sue was our woodworking counselor. And when we were explorers, which were the oldest tribe back in the day, she said, all right, you guys, everyone make like something small and we're going to put them out on a tree. And she's like, we're just going to do this thing. And we're like, all right, sick. And like, legitimately, it says 1994 on it. So like, we're coming up on, holy mackerel, 30 years. That's a long time.
It's super cool because I mean, like it's a project you all get to work on. You put it up and it just stays there.
Yeah.
But right now, I'm working on what I want to leave in the wood shop. And I'm having a lot of help from Lily, the arts and crafts counselor. I went ahead and I took a board and I cut out the shape of an electric guitar, and I got it nice and smooth. And I only worked on it for about a week or so. But when you're working on it 5 activities in a row, you get a lot of progress done.
Right.
I had Lily paint the whole thing. She did an incredible job painting it. The thing looks awesome. I'm gonna put strings on it, and then on the last day of camp, what I plan on doing is I'm gonna go up and hang it in the top of the wood shop.
That's awesome. That's like a classic woodworking arts and crafts collab.
Yes, yes, yes. I wanted to do something with Lily and I, because I mean we're both in the barn together. We both lean on each other a little bit, and I thought it was really fitting.
I've managed to catch I think 3 of the shows at camp.
Yeah,
And I got to tell you, your skits are awesome.
thank you.
Like what's your like when you get the theme on Monday or whatever, do you start thinking about it? What like or what walk me through your process?
So, the second we get the idea for the show, I start running through what I think would be good, what I think the campers would like. Um, Sometimes I don't get the idea immediately. So this is what ends up happening is I have a friend named Ryan Winters. Everybody just calls him Winters. It's a cool last name. So he's one of my best friends, and I always rattle off ideas to him because he's a very creative person. And so uh, I remember I remember talking to him about the Hollywood week as well as the rollover Beethoven. Uh, so I like to try and think of what the campers would like, and then I bounce them off of my friend because he usually gives me a very real opinion of like, oh, I think that'd be good, or oh, you should do this, or this would be better. And like when we did the big thing, I knew immediately I wanted to put someone in the squirrel suit because squirrels. And what's sing without getting counselors in trouble? Because I remember when I was a CIT, I I was very careful to just try and do everything right. I didn't want to mess up. I didn't want to get called up, even though in reality you're really not in trouble. It's just come do something silly because you didn't take your hat off at flag. Like,
Right. Yeah.
and, uh, like when I was a CIT, I remember the video counselors at the time. It was, I want to say it was Mike and Jess. Uh, they decided they were gonna frame me like week 3, and they took a piece of paper and they chewed gum and stuck the gum to the center of the paper, circled it, and on the paper wrote, "My name is Cam Desmond, and I was chewing this gum." They were like, "How on earth did a CIT do this?" So um,
That's great.
immediately I wanted to do something like that for the big sing. And I had Eli that week. And I thought, how awesome would it be if Sam and Tom sitting up on the picnic table had their family go up there in the squirrel suit for the squirrels. I thought it all just tied in well. As well as for the Hollywood week, that one I also knew immediately, like, oh my gosh, I want them to do a bunch of like well-known movie scenes. I think that would be hilarious. Um, I had Aiden do the Titanic. I thought that was a riot. Some of the other kids did some of their favorite movie scenes. And then one of my personal highlights of the summer, I was heartbroken he wasn't coming back for this third session, was my camper Reese. Reese was another one of those campers who I loved having in the troop, got along with everybody, was always participating, super willing to try new stuff. And I told him, I remember telling him on Monday, like, hey, watch this video. I want you to learn this dance for the skit on Friday. And he was so for it right from the jump. And I was like, I want you to learn the Napoleon Dynamite dance. Never seen the movie, had no idea what I was talking about. He's like, okay, yeah, let's do it. And I'm like, sweet. So that was
Yeah,
my.
I was wondering about that because I was lucky enough to witness this in person. And so like Aiden goes out, does the Titanic. It's like, the top 50 movies of whatever 50 years. And he does the Titanic thing. We're like, okay, it's followed up by like literally another classic like Sonic the Hedgehog. It was amazing. It was like perfect camp.
Star
Yeah.
Wars, good
Yeah.
stuff.
And
And
then and then you guys get in there and I'm like my jaw dropped. It was so unbelievable what you guys did. And I was curious. How did Cam know this? Because it's like probably like a 2 or 3 minute dance. Like,
yeah,
did you know this thing or did you learn it for the skit?
oh, we learned it for the skit. So funny enough, I not for a second was I planning on going out there and doing the dance with him. Right, I was just gonna sit on the stage the whole time and let him do his thing. And the whole week he's doing the dance and I'm learning it with him, so I can like just try and teach him better and be like, and when this part of the song happens, like drop your shoulder, like whatever, right? Just teaching them everything. And maybe 10 minutes before the show, I remember I went over during third activity. They were at music, and I went over during that activity and I was just talking to them like, hey guys, are we all ready for the show? Let's run through it real quick. John was totally fine with that. I'll do that every once in a while, just because I want to make sure the skit goes well. And I remember Reese and I going through everything, and he comes up to me right before, and it's like, Cam, I don't want to do it alone. Can you do it with me? And I'm like, oh my God, yes, absolutely.
Yes.
And the kid, he did so good. He did incredible. It was really awesome. How well he learned it, how enthusiastic he was about it. It was really just a blast, start to finish.
So I actually have video of that. So I will put it up when this posts. I can actually send it to you too. It
I would
was,
love that.
yeah, it was unbelievable. Yeah, I have the whole skit. Perfect. Yeah, I'll get that over to you.
Awesome.
It
Yep.
was so good, Kim, honestly.
Thank
Because I was like,
you.
oh, okay, because I was like, okay, this is like a classic skit, right? You have the counselor, each kid does their little vignette, whatever, blah, 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 easy, boom, done. And then, and I thought it was funny enough because you had, the best movies and they're these like silly, whatever.
Right,
And then I
right.
was like my jaw hit the floor. It was so good, honestly. So,
Good.
um, and then you did, what was the other one I saw? Oh yeah. So obviously I was there for the reunion sing and I thought that was super creative. And like, it just, here's the thing that I'm finding in talking to you all who are still there now, who like, it's weird. Cause like I was there for so long and I knew everyone, everything. And then, you step away and you slowly but surely like don't know people there. And, there are a couple of the, hangers on, which is, I love.
Yeah.
But in talking to you guys and getting to know you, I love how much you love it. And like the fact that like, we've said that like Bill and I have said it, like I just feel like you guys are first of all like way better counselors than us because like there's so much effort like for the kids. But like I love how much you love it. And you're like, this is my thought process. This is why I'm doing it. The kids are gonna love it. And boom, we're gonna do it. And it just like keeps delivering. And I've been lucky enough to see some of the stuff this year being there. And I'm just like, I'm blown away. So like keep doing it. Whatever it is your process is, it's working.
Awesome. I'm having so much fun with it this year. And something Sam was talking about on orientation that's just been sitting on my mind the whole summer. He mentioned it again at the 50th reunion party. What is it that makes the place so special? And you try to explain it to people who have never been there, and you can never grasp the concept. And I think it's so much more than this, but I think what a lot of it boils down to is the genuine love for fun at the camp. Everybody's so focused on having a good time and making sure everyone else has a good time. And when you have that many people working together to really make something special, I think I think that's what makes it so special is everybody there working together, everybody there loving what they do, and the kids are super involved. You get them into it, you return the same energy that they bring, and everyone feeds off of each other. It's just it's truly special.
I think I think you're close. I think that's I no one's been able to put it into words, much to my chagrin, offering, doing a podcast, but like there it's it. Like it's it.
Yeah,
And I think it's cool. And there is a very real energy at that camp. You
yeah,
get onto the campgrounds and there's just like even this year through the dust, like you can feel it. So it's and like all of that stuff that you guys bring to it now as counselors who love it. Like that's you're part of the fire, right? You're either the fuel or the result of the fire or whatever, because it's all kind of a symbiotic relationship. But
right.
it's really, really, really cool after having been away for a while and then seeing it, particularly from a different perspective, from a parent perspective. It's just like it is. I cannot put into words, and I'm just so grateful for all of you guys. Like I just am. It's like my kids are having the time of their lives. They have grown, so they grow so much in 6 weeks, just like confidence wise. Like
Yes.
the there was a point during the first session that you had to leave early or whatever, and I only knew this because when I grabbed Aiden, I was like, "Oh, where's Cam?" And he goes, "Oh, I had to dip out real quick." And I was like, "I've never heard you use these words before. I love it." Like, so it's like it's all this stuff. And so like we'll pull into Dunkin' Donuts and there will be like a couple of cars there. And now both the kids are like, "Oh, Dunkin' Donuts is popping." It's great. They're turning into teenagers, but like in the best way. They're like using the lingo. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because oh my gosh, and you can see it with each troop. All the kids will pick up on the little isms of their own counselor, and I think that's the funniest thing is that a lot of my campers use a lot of the words I use, but if you go and you talk to the beavers or something, a lot of them will try and mimic like Ty's outgoing personality or something, or or Shay's humor, or like some boys in the Hawks will do things that you would see Freddie do, and I think it's the coolest thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, because you can understand it. These are the coolest people you've ever
Yeah,
met in your life. and
Yes.
you're trying to be them. Um, I remember watching my favorite counselor, Karen Kraus, just like sitting at Sing, and I was like, oh, that's how I sit. Like, you know what I mean? Like stupid stuff like that. But I was like, well, if I can just be like her, then I will, like, that's it. Then I can have a piece of camp all year round. Ridiculous.
Talking about it earlier in the podcast, like 15, 13, 14 years ago. These guys were my counselors, and here I am, this much time later, and I'm still saying AJ and Andrew Friday were some of the coolest people I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it really does go to like the place. It just leaves such an indelible mark on you, and like I mean, and I'm sure that you've taken like what you took from the Fridays, for example. You're like, oh, I'm gonna when I'm a head counselor, I'm doing that.
100%. Uh, that's actually great that you just said that. Like my whole drive for wanting to go and like do these dances or like go up and just be silly. There's a couple of assistants that I've done this a couple times with this summer. Luke and Brendan, great assistants. They bring a lot of energy. They're great with the kids. I love them. I think they have a great future at camp if they stick with it. But like, we'll go up and we'll dance to like really like Doja Cat or like what's another like Backstreet Boys, just like funny like boy band stuff or something. We'll dancing like this and stuff, and I always describe them as songs that make me feel pretty, and I think it's so much fun. But me doing that is kind of like paying homage to AJ Friday, who would go up and do these Elvis performances. I thought it was the coolest thing, and I go up and I do a little performance, and like hopefully the campers get half the amount of joy that I got from it watching those guys growing up.
Yeah. And they'll talk about it. Like, do you remember when we go up with Cam? Yeah, for sure. So little known fact, maybe not. I don't remember. I don't know. When I was talking to Tom and Sam for the podcast coming out later this fall. So AJ Friday, who also was a camper of mine, super shy, apparently.
Really?
Super shy. And then because Tom mentioned this whole Elvis thing, I had no idea about it. Super shy. And then just kind of got into it. I think it may have been the first time he did it, it may have been like a skit day or something. And then it became his thing. And that like totally brought him out. And like,
Oh,
yeah. So, you know, it's the things that you as a camper would never know. Like
right.
there's been a lot of people who've said, "Oh, I was super shy before camp," or like I was shy and then camp just kind of like boom
Yeah.
brings it out. Yeah. Last week you received a green hat. I want to hear what that was like. I want to hear what the ceremony was like, how it made you feel. I want to
Um,
hear all about it.
Green hat. So I remember, I remember as a camper watching the green hat ceremony and watching that, and you got to see these head counselors who always brought so much to camp would go up and they would receive this hat, and it seemed like they entered this elite group of you're a part of camp, and it always seemed like a really profound moment for them. And I always thought it was super, in a way, impressive to me for someone to be at camp, to be a counselor for that long, and to really go out there and put in as much effort as they do. And I remember always thinking to myself, like, oh my gosh, if I ever become a counselor, I want that green hat. And part part of the reason why it means so much to me is I remember I was really hung up on the fact when I was a Cheyenne of is this going to be my last year or not? And I had some counselors like in my ear being like, Cam, there's no way you don't come back to CIT. And like great, whatever. I didn't. It wasn't the truth unless it came from Tom himself, right?
Right, right.
And I remember I remember one day I was really thinking about it. It was the third session, and I had John Panciaco as my head counselor, and I remember talking to John because he had been talking to us for quite a bit. He knew the kids who really wanted to come back and be a CIT, and I told him how nervous I was that I wasn't going to come back, and we had a bit of a heart to heart where I remember he told me uh, he thought I had a lot of potential, and he thought I would make a great head counselor. And I just remember him saying that to me. And in that moment, I really wanted to get a green hat because I felt like that was kind of like I did it.
Yeah.
And he he was really confident that I would be a good counselor. And it meant a lot getting that hat
Yeah.
because like I said, it's just it's really a symbol of you stuck with it. You put in a lot of effort. It's kind of clear they enjoy you here if you get one of those.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it means something. I mean, we've talked about it, at length. It Hearing, words of encouragement like that from people like John Pantiaco, it's the words, but it's the person it's coming from too, and it means something. And so I can imagine getting that hat is just like, oh, I'm here. You did it.
I and like I know if he was still around, he'd give me a nice "I told you so."
Yep, he sure would. Yeah, and I'm sure you will. Yeah, I'm sure he is giving it to you somehow. That I know for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah, that green hat meant a lot.
that's
And
great.
I remember, I remember after getting, I was a wreck getting it. I was for the couple weeks leading up to it. Like whenever I saw more than like 3 or 4 counselors wearing the green hat, I'm like, oh my god, it's today today. And about everything and how much camp meant to me, and like I'd feel the tears coming. I'm like, no, this is not happening. You need to hold it together. Just thinking about how much camp meant for me and everything it's done for me, and how much I get to be myself at camp, uh, really means a lot to me. And gosh, man, there's so much behind that hat.
Yeah.
I remember after receiving it, walking off. I'm right next to Mora, and I give her a little tap, and I just hit her with a, "Hey Mora, thanks for letting me know about this place," because she was the whole reason I started going to camp, and it's hard to think about who I would be without camp.
I think the fact that you feel so strongly about it kind of lends itself to how important the camp is to everyone, right?
Yes,
So it's like it's just kind of a symbol of like, hey, we really appreciate everything you've done here. um and on the flip side, it's like, yeah, well, this place has also given me a lot, and I think it's absolutely wonderful. I don't know you very well, Cam. I've only known you for 6 weeks, but I'm so happy you have that hat, because I
yeah.
can't think of anyone else, a more deserving person to have it. So I think it's great. A plus.
Hey, uh, yeah. That hat is one of the ways I view it is like a thank you, is like a pat on the back of like a nice job, and it's just nice because it's like I remember being a CIT and like Tom saying things to me and Sam saying things to me and other counselors saying things to me like, hey, like I think you could do a lot of great stuff here. Like you could really just keep being you and run with it. And I feel like getting that hat is kind of all those people who encouraged me along the way. I did them justice.
Yeah. That's a really great way to look at it. That's
Yeah,
that's awesome. These are things that matter.
yeah,
And in the camp environment, it's okay and encouraged for you to appreciate them, for everyone to appreciate them and not put up any sort of front of like that's great. I'm happy for the hat. And it just
yeah.
yeah, it just makes it matter so much more because you know, there are campers out here there who are like, I want that. Like I want to be that because they know the type of counselor you are. And they're like, oh, if that's what it means to have a green hat, that's I want to do that. So it's great. God, it's hard to say enough about this place, right?
You know what the funny thing is? I'm not even a hat person. I never wear hats.
You have that
And you
great
know what?
hair. Yeah.
When I got that green hat, I did not take it off for the rest of the day.
Yeah. That's wonderful.
I want to go ahead and say I think Sam has gone above and beyond with making every day special. Okay, all right. First off, incredible move going back to heads assistant CITs. I thought that was so awesome for the summer. That in of itself, fantastic move. But every single day there's something. I don't think we've had. I'm sorry. I think we've had one normal schedule all summer, but almost every single day there's a counselor competition or Dancing with the Stars or just something. And it's been every single day there's something to look forward to, and I think it's fantastic. Like uh, like today we did Olympic diving. Yesterday we did the food relay. Tomorrow we got uh, Dancing with the Stars check in, maybe final round of freeze dance. Thursday we got Battle Royale, huge day.
What do you do? What are you doing to prep for the battle?
Oh, been in the gym since the second week. The heads, some of the people who are really into it, will gather around in a circle. Like, listen, like that CIT Ari, somebody's got to match up with him. The assistants, Brendan and Luke, we got to make sure somebody tie those kids down. You three, you guys got to make sure you're pushing that ball on offense. Are we going to defend shallow end, deep end? What are we going to do? Just into it, and I love how much we care about it.
That's so is it that does the winner is it winner take all?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So
That's crazy.
yeah, the funniest thing about is the counselor competitions. It is for nothing but seeding. It is. Whoever wins battle wins the summer. That's it. Case closed. Period.
So what's the seating? How do they do three teams?
So, with heads assistants CITs, what I believe is going to happen is it's just going to straight up be assistants and CITs. They'll get their dream team together and go up against the heads, and it'll just be one round.
So when I was there, it was Billy's brother John was like Patrick's dad who would like dunk you under and and then that was Billy. So who isn't on your team who's doing that?
Oh, Freddie. Freddie is a menace. I remember last year, he was our biggest concern for the battle. And I remember every time we got together to talk about it, it was John, you have to control Freddie. And his only mission was to make sure Freddie was a non factor. So wherever the ball was, it was John, keep Freddie on the opposite side of the pool. Don't let him touch other counselors. So you try and recognize those people before the battle. Like this year, I know the assistants that are really going to go out there and try to make a difference. Brendan, for sure. The kid's an incredible swimmer. He's pretty strong. So he's one of those people who is we're going to assign someone to him to be like, hey, make sure he doesn't do anything that'll help his team. Same with Ari, the CIT. Kid has the state record for shot put and something else. Since day one of camp, you're talking smack to the other teams about battle. Like,
Wow.
I'll have a CIT come up to me and they'll be like, Cam, we're taking you down to battle, right? We've been preparing. And I'm like, that's really funny.
Yeah, that's adorable. Yeah. Good luck. Best of luck.
I'm so pumped I got to come on and talk about this because, like, as you can see, camp means oh so much to me, and I think I got countless stories of like just silly things that mean a lot to me. So I am so pumped I was able to come out and share everything. I think it's super cool just to be able to reflect and love every second of it.